Michelle Pfeiffer is in the middle of a career resurgence and stars in not one but two upcoming TV series, and she credits her husband, David E. Kelley, for supporting her. Michelle told Entertainment Tonight, "I think we both know that I've put in my time, and now it is my time."
Hollywood has long operated as a glittering, high-stakes theater of the mind, a place where the distinction between artifice and reality is famously porous. Beneath the polished veneer of red carpets, award ceremonies, and meticulously crafted press releases, there exists a subterranean layer of secrets, whispers that circulate through production offices and industry parties, gaining weight and texture as the years roll by. Among the most enduring of these industry legends is the long-suspected, never fully confirmed entanglement between Michelle Pfeiffer and John Malkovich during the production of the 1988 masterpiece Dangerous Liaisons. For over 3 decades, this rumor has clung to the rafters of Tinseltown, a ghost story of sorts that refuses to be exorcised. Yet, in a rare recent development that has sent ripples of curiosity through the legacy of the film, one of the primary subjects has finally breached his own wall of silence. His words, cryptic and measured as they are, offer a haunting postscript to a chapter of cinematic history that has remained frustratingly elusive for nearly a generation. To understand the weight of this narrative, one must return to the late 1980s, a period when the cinematic landscape felt significantly different, more tactile, more brooding, and perhaps more dangerous. Dangerous Liaisons, directed by Stephen Frears, was an adaptation of the 18th century epistolary novel by Pierre Coderlos de Laclos, a work infamous for its unflinching examination of aristocratic decadence, sexual manipulation, and the psychological cruelty inherent in the pursuit of pleasure. When the film premiered, it was an immediate sensation, a lush, visually arresting piece of period drama that felt both trapped in its own era and terrifyingly relevant. It featured a trio of performers, Glenn Close, John Malkovich, and Michelle Pfeiffer, at the absolute zenith of their collective powers. The film was not merely a costume drama. It was an interrogation of human behavior, presenting a world where love was treated as a tactical maneuver and vulnerability was the ultimate liability. In the film, Michelle Pfeiffer portrayed the virtuous, pious Madame de Tourvel, a woman whose descent into passion is as tragic as it is inevitable. Opposite her was John Malkovich's Vicomte de Valmont, a libertine whose only goal in life was the strategic destruction of reputation and resolve. The chemistry between them was palpable, a jagged, electric current that crackled through every frame. Critics of the time were spellbound by their performances, noting that the intensity in their eyes suggested a connection that transcended mere script interpretation. It was as if, within the stifling, candlelit interiors of 18th century France, the actors were navigating a secondary, unspoken set of rules. As they inhabited characters defined by extreme intimacy and devastating moral corruption, the boundary between the performance and the actors' actual psyches reportedly began to fray. In the intense, isolated environment of a high-budget film production, months of deep emotional labor can often produce a phenomenon known as transfer, where the intensity of the scene spills over into the private hours of the cast. The whispers were that this was exactly what occurred. The seduction on screen had found a parallel, more chaotic life behind the cameras. To grasp the magnitude of the potential fallout, one must examine the lives both individuals were leading in 1988. Michelle Pfeiffer was the definition of Hollywood royalty, a rising star with an ethereal screen presence matched by an ironclad work ethic. She had already proven her mettle in Scarface and The Witches of Eastwick, and was moving toward a legendary streak of films, Married to the Mob, The Fabulous Baker Boys, and Batman Returns, that would solidify her status as a generational icon. At the time, she was married to the television writer and producer Peter Horton. To the outside world, theirs was a model of stability, a partnership built on the quiet, grounded foundation of two professionals navigating the turbulence of fame together. John Malkovich, meanwhile, represented a different archetype, the intellectual, shape-shifting chameleon of the stage and screen. Having emerged from the crucible of Chicago's legendary Steppenwolf Theater, he carried with him an air of intense, artistic volatility. He was not a traditional leading man. He was a character actor of immense gravity, having already earned an Academy Award nomination for Places in the Heart. His marriage to the brilliant actress Glenn Headley was the product of a shared creative life. A bond forged in the trenches of independent theater, where the lines between one's art and one's identity are blurred by necessity. They were a pair deeply rooted in an artistic community, making their potential separation feel like the fracturing of an entire creative ecosystem. For both Pfeiffer and Horton and Malkovich and Headley, the stakes were high. They were not merely individuals in the public eye, but partners in established, multi-layered lives. Yet, the persistent rumors suggest that amid the idyllic backdrop of the English countryside, the allure of the forbidden proved far more potent than the stability they had built back home. The longevity of the rumor itself speaks to the nature of the Hollywood echo chamber. In an industry where information is currency, stories like this are traded, embellished, and sustained by a collective desire to believe that the art we witness is fueled by real, chaotic truth. When the gossip first began to circulate, there was no shortage of sources, crew members, assistants, journalists, and publicists who existed in the orbit of the production. However, the true sustenance of this rumor was the silence of the participants. Neither Pfeiffer nor Malkovich ever issued a definitive denial or a confirmation. In the strategic realm of celebrity management, silence is often a form of protection, but in the context of persistent gossip, it becomes an invitation for speculation to thrive. The coincidence of the timeline is, perhaps, what made the rumors so difficult to dismiss. Within the same year that Dangerous Liaisons was unleashed upon the world, both marriages, Pfeiffer's to Horton and Malkovich's to Headley, dissolved. While coincidences are common in the industry, this particular overlap felt too sharp, too deliberate, for the public to ignore. The tabloids, hungry for a narrative, did not hesitate to draw lines between the on-screen seduction and the real-world heartbreak. Glenn Headley went on to build a formidable career, marked by her comedic brilliance and dramatic range, until her untimely passing in 2017. Peter Horton continued his career as a highly regarded producer and director. Yet, the narrative of that 1988 production remained attached to them all, a lingering shadow cast by a film that, ironically, was all about the devastating cost of secrets. For more than 3 decades, the subject was considered off-limits. But time, it seems, has a way of softening the edges of even the most guarded stories. In recent months, John Malkovich, a man famously averse to the trivialities of gossip columns, provided a rare reflection that felt like a bridge between his past and present. In a candid, albeit characteristically oblique, interview, he broke the long-held silence. He did not provide a sordid, tell-all confession, nor did he indulge the curiosity of the masses in a way that felt cheap. Instead, he spoke with the gravity of a man who has had 30 years to analyze the wreckage. He acknowledged that this was a topic he usually avoided, stating, "It's not something I ever really talk about." The mere utterance of that sentence was, in itself, a confession. By acknowledging that there was something to discuss, and subsequently choosing not to disclose it, he effectively moved the story from the realm of pure fiction to the territory of lived reality. He went on to describe Michelle Pfeiffer with a profound, almost melancholic warmth, referring to her as someone I valued greatly as a colleague, someone who was incredibly fair and great fun. These were the words of someone who had once stood very close to the fire. The core of his reflection, however, lay in his observation that when a professional relationship between 2 actors becomes more than collegial, the ultimate tragedy is that you end up losing a great colleague. This statement is the key to understanding his position. He is not mourning the end of a tryst. He is mourning the loss of a partnership, a creative connection that he clearly cherishes in retrospect. There is an unmistakable sense of regret in his tone, not necessarily for the action taken, but for the consequence of that action on the professional life he shared with her. It is a nuanced, cerebral way of addressing a delicate matter, one that forces the listener to grapple with the idea that some things are too complicated for a simple yes or no answer. He is, in his own way, offering an apology to the memory of that professional bond, acknowledging that the entanglement fundamentally changed the trajectory of his relationship with a woman he clearly held in high regard. In contrast, Michelle Pfeiffer has remained a monolith of silence. She has never addressed the affair, never validated the rumors, and never deviated from her path of professional discipline. This silence is not merely an absence of words. It is a meticulously crafted wall. Pfeiffer has always been one of the most guarded stars in Hollywood, someone who understands that in an industry that demands everything from you, your privacy is the only thing you truly own. Her choice to remain silent for 32 years is a statement of power. While the gossip machine has churned, and while Malkovich has eventually allowed for a partial glimpse behind the curtain, Pfeiffer has remained resolutely, even impressively, unmoved. Her silence suggests that, for her, this chapter is closed, private, and entirely irrelevant to the woman she has become. There is a distinct dignity to her refusal to engage. In a culture that demands constant transparency, her ability to hold a secret for 3 decades is an anomaly. She has allowed the narrative to belong to others, effectively distancing herself from the tabloid version of her own history. Whether her silence is a sign of regret, a measure of indifference, or a shield for something she simply does not wish to share, it remains the most powerful element of this entire saga. She has reclaimed the narrative by refusing to participate in it. As both actors moved forward, their lives took divergent, yet similarly impressive, paths. Michelle Pfeiffer continued to ascend, her career defined by a series of iconic roles that cemented her as one of the finest actresses of her generation. Her personal life, too, found a different kind of longevity. She married David E. Kelley in 1993, and together they have raised a family, successfully navigating the complexities of Hollywood life while maintaining a level of normalcy that is exceedingly rare. Her work in the decades following Dangerous Liaisons, from the fabulous Baker Boys to her recent turn in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, reflects an actress who is constantly evolving, never defined by the gossip of the past. John Malkovich, conversely, has carved out a life that is as eclectic and global as his filmography. Settled in Europe with his long-term partner, Nicoletta Perron, he has cultivated a life far removed from the relentless scrutiny of the American industry. His work has remained fearless, unpredictable, and brilliantly weird. He became a meta-commentary on his own fame in being John Malkovich, proving that he possessed the self-awareness to see how the world perceived him. He remains an enigmatic figure, someone who embraces the strangeness of existence rather than trying to fit into the conventional molds of Hollywood stardom. When we consider why this story refuses to fade, we have to recognize that it is not really about an affair. It is about the peculiar, often dangerous intimacy that defines the craft of acting. When two people are required to simulate deep, all-consuming passion, night after night, under the pressure of a director's vision, something transformative happens to the chemistry between them. The human brain is not always capable of completely isolating those emotions from the reality of the moment. We are drawn to this story because it humanizes the untouchable. It suggests that even those who are paid to inhabit the lives of others are not immune to the consequences of the emotions they are forced to mimic. Furthermore, it is a story about the cost of memory. We are left with a lingering sense of complexity, a career-defining performance, 2 marriages that ended, a silence that spanned 3 decades, and a final, quiet admission of regret. We may never know the full truth of what occurred between those two during the filming of Dangerous Liaisons, and perhaps that is as it should be. The ambiguity allows the story to live on as a piece of Hollywood folklore, a cautionary tale about the thin line between the roles we play and the people we are. Like, subscribe, and follow for more.